I remember the day it all unraveled. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, and the leaves danced rebelliously around me as I approached my family's home. I could still hear their laughter echoing in my mind, mocking me as I had tried to explain what I'd been studying. "You're wasting your life," they said, their voices dripping with disdain. "You'll end up a laughingstock, living in some dilapidated building, talking to ghosts." The irony was thick in the air as I stood there. A renowned expert in paranormal urban decay investigation, armed with knowledge that could chill the bravest soul. I had spent years delving into the dark underbelly of our cities, exploring the rot that festered behind closed doors and beneath crumbling facades. The world I had once been ridiculed for studying was now a realm of terrifying recognition. I had exposed truths that would haunt the very structures my family took for granted. But I was no longer the fragile disgrace they had cast me as. I was a warning. As I pushed open the door, the familiar scent of home washed over me. Wood polish mixed with the faintest hint of neglect. My parents sat in the living room, their expressions shifting from surprise to discomfort. They had aged, their faces lined with the burdens of their own choices. Yet their eyes flickered with that same derision I had fought so hard to escape. "Look who's back," my father said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The ghost whisperer. I felt the familiar sting of their disdain. "Tell us then," my mother said, leaning forward with a mix of curiosity and disdain. "What have you found? More tales of haunted buildings? More ridiculous stories?" I took a deep breath, steadying my resolve. "I've uncovered a sentience within the decay of our cities. It's not just mold or rot. It's something alive, something that feeds on the despair and fear of those who dwell within these walls." Their faces twisted in disbelief, and I felt the familiar urge to retreat, to hide from their scorn. But I pushed forward, recounting the horrors I had faced, the buildings that whispered secrets, the shadows that moved with intent, the decay that seemed to pulse with a dark heartbeat. I told them of the time I had ventured into an abandoned hospital, where the walls seemed to bleed memories of the past, and the air was thick with the weight of unspoken sorrow. "Enough of this nonsense," my father snapped, his voice rising. "You've lost your mind. You're chasing ghosts." But I could see it in their eyes, the flicker of fear that betrayed their bravado. They wanted to dismiss me, to laugh me off as they had done for years, but something deeper stirred within them. I seized the moment. "Let me show you," I said, my heart pounding in my chest. "Let me show you the truth." I reached into my bag, pulling out a small device I had developed, an electromagnetic field meter, designed to detect disturbances in the air. It had saved my life more times than I could count, revealing presences that clung to the decay. "What are you going to do? Summon a ghost?" my mother scoffed, but the tremor in her voice hinted at her unease. I turned on the device, and the lights flickered as it hummed to life. The air thickened, crackling with a tension I could feel in my bones. I watched as their expressions shifted from mockery to confusion, and then to fear as the device began to react, the lights flashing with an urgency that sent shivers down my spine. "What is happening?" my father demanded, his bravado crumbling as the room grew colder. "Something is here," I whispered, my heart racing. I could sense it, the presence lurking in the shadows of our old home, feeding off the disbelief and disdain that had woven itself into the very fabric of our lives. Suddenly, the walls shuddered as if responding to my words. A low, guttural sound emanated from the very structure of the house, a resonance that felt like the cries of the forgotten. I watched as my parents' faces paled, their laughter evaporating like mist in the morning sun. "Stop it! This isn't funny!" my mother cried, her voice breaking. But I couldn't stop it. I was no longer the fragile child they had once ridiculed. I was a vessel of truths they couldn't bear to face. The air thickened with something palpable, a dark energy that swirled around us, whispering secrets of the decay that thrived just beyond our perception. As the shadows twisted and writhed, I could see the realization dawning on their faces. They had mocked what they didn't understand, and now they were witnesses to the very horrors I had spent years uncovering. The weight of their disbelief hung heavy in the air, a cost they could no longer ignore. With a final surge, the device let out a piercing shriek, and the shadows coalesced into a figure, a dark, twisted reflection of all the fears they had buried deep within themselves. I could see it in their eyes, the horror of recognition as they faced what they had dismissed for so long. And just like that, it was over. The presence vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving behind a suffocating silence. My parents stood frozen, their faces pale and haunted.